Hi, this is Raven from Raven's Reality, and I'm in a different spot. I'm in a public park. This is about 5 to 10 minutes away from my house, not too far. But I guess I want to focus on this new video I'm working on, which is this whole thing going with this whole philosophy of, or at least what I like to call, everything is nothing and nothing is everything. But I'll put in the title, to an extent, because I don't think I can apply this philosophy to everything in my life. There are certain things where I feel like I would have to probably draw the line in which how I can apply it and where to apply it. But I'm gonna go down a list of examples with stories and ideologies and how I choose to see things and just kind of take it from there. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. With my whole philosophy of everything is nothing and nothing is everything, I think what I try to put with meaning to this is that there are a lot of things in this world that don't really make sense. But in an attempt to understand it, we try to label it and basically give it meaning, And I feel like we do this a lot. I think I made another video about this. I think maybe it was a year or two ago, maybe in the winter, like the pros and cons of labeling everything or something like that. I was a little bit more negative in that one. I'm actually gonna be a little bit more positive in this one, as one of my friends was telling me to be, which he was kind of right about. But when it comes to the whole philosophy, we really do give attachment. We give terms and definitions and labels to things that don't really make sense, but we try to label them and give meaning and attach that stuff to them in order to it to make sense. And I guess that's kind of the whole thing where it comes to, labeling stuff and such. And I guess this goes into the term that I refer to as conditioned logic, where there are a lot of things that don't make sense, like I said before, but we try to label them and attach them and give them meaning so that way they can somewhat make sense to us. And in a way they do, and in a way they don't. And I guess I'm gonna probably show both halves of that. I ask myself this sometimes too. It's like, why is the sky blue? Is the sky blue because it's blue? Or is it blue because some person from a very long time ago called it blue and everyone else just seemed to agree with it, and thus to everybody, or at least a majority of our population of human beings, which is about 8 billion, the sky is blue, Had history written itself a different way, the sky could be red, it could be yellow, it could be orange, it could be black for all we know, But we gave it that term, we gave it that meaning, and thus we all unanimously agree that the sky is blue. That's like one example right there, Like, here's another one, which I also wrote down. Why is 2 plus 2 4? Is it 4 because it's actually 4? Or is it 4 because that's what the answer is that we choose to associate with 2 plus 2, and everyone from hundreds of years ago just naturally agreed with that because of what one person probably said or a couple of people said, and now here we are in our current society, still today, 2 plus 2 equaling 4, I'm trying to think about it more from like a broader perspective to where 2 plus 2 could literally be anything to me. Like maybe it could be 3, maybe it could be 4, But the way that we were conditioned by society and the attachment in the labeling and the things that we give that stuff determines how we feel about it. It determines whether we see things as right or wrong. And I feel like that's kind of where I'm starting to go with this. And the ways that I connected it to my life was kind of being able to understand why I have anxiety, Growing up, I was told, to feel a certain way, to act a certain way, and thus, if I wasn't acting a certain way, if I wasn't behaving a certain way, and if I did something that was seen as wrong, thus, naturally, just unanimously disagreeing with them, I would see it as wrong. And don't get me wrong, to me, some things are wrong. Stealing is wrong, hurting people is wrong, etc., etc. But it really began to the point where I began to give so much attachment to what other people were saying that I then began to have anxiety. I began to always feel like people were always coming after me. I always felt like people were watching me to an extent, which honestly, no one really is. And I'm not gonna get too personal. I've spoken way too much about this shit already, but I think to bring it back around to the more general meaning of it for me was that I was always afraid of being proven wrong by people, because I always felt like no matter how hard I tried, with how I saw the world, with how I see things, I was always gonna be wrong, and everyone else who tried to prove me wrong was always gonna just be stuck being right. But then now that I really apply this true definition of everything is nothing and nothing is everything and conditioned logic, it kind of makes me think a little bit otherwise, you know? And this is where I really begin to realize that opinions are really just opinions. And I have so many examples, but I wrote down a couple of them. I guess one example, my dad told me when I was about maybe 18 or 19 to not go searching for jobs on a Friday because of traffic, how hectic things were going to be, you know? And I almost believed him. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I probably shouldn't try doing this. Maybe he's right from experience. But I'm like, what if I actually do find a job? And it just so mattered to happen that I did, you know? I went job hunting, walked into a restaurant, asked them, I think it was August of 2023, if they were hiring, got a freaking resume, filled out some application. 20 to 25 minutes later, I was sitting down with the manager of that restaurant asking me questions, and I'm like, and he was asking me questions, and it was like, holy shit, like I just got I literally just got a job interview right there on the spot. And the next thing I knew, he's like, hey man, come in on Monday, you're hired. We'll start training you. Like that shit actually shocked the hell out of me. I'm like, wow, had I had listened to my dad and taken his advice, which to an extent was an opinion, I would probably still be unemployed right now at the age of 21. Like, it's so crazy how, you know, I almost listened to him, and I get it, you know, maybe he was trying to protect me, maybe he wanted me to be safe, but you know, sometimes you gotta take a gamble, you know, and like nothing bad was really going to happen. It wasn't horrible. I was going somewhere locally, so it's like, why not try it anyways? And I've had that job ever since. Don't like it that much, or at least not as much anymore, but the fact that I was willing, you know, to follow my own heart and to really, you know, find like my own meaning within all that stuff, showed like, hey, like sometimes other people can be wrong and I could be right, you know, like without even really thinking about it. I think another example that I also really was able to incorporate as well was that at the store that I now work at, this restaurant, there was a misunderstanding between me and some customer. She was asking for 2 of a specific type of food, but to me, I thought she only asked 1. Then I got confused, she got angry at me, and I was very confused by it. And I was like, oh shoot, my bad. Like, I could always just make another one, right? And the truth is I could. It was just an accident, you know? Because I misinterpreted what she said, I thought she wanted 1 instead of 2, you know? She ended up getting angry and basically treating it as if I didn't care, or as if I wasn't listening, or if it was at the end of the world. And maybe from her perspective, I can understand, you know? But from my perspective, it was just an honest mistake, you know? I misunderstood what she was saying. It was unintentional, and it was total accident. So to me, it wasn't seen as that big of a deal. Like, I wanted to apologize and stuff. I mean, I never really did. I was just like, hey, you know, we could offer you another one, you know, and it won't take that long, you know? But then she chose to get all mad and angry, and then like her daughter had to like calm her down or something, you know? To me, it wasn't that big of a deal, because I mean, like, I'm human, I fuck up, and I make mistakes, and sometimes, you know, shit happens, you know? It wasn't intentional, and so to me, it like wasn't that big of a deal. All we had to do was just make 1 more, and it wouldn't take that long, and we'd be done, you know? But instead she chose to overreact and get angry, acting as if her whole entire world was about to end, or as if something horrible was about to happen. But in the grand scheme of things, it's literally just food, you know? Maybe she was hungry, I mean, shit, I don't know. When I thought about it like that, it's like, you know, to her, you know, the mistake that I made felt like nothing, you know? Because I'm like, hey, I could just make another one. But to her, it felt like everything, you know? Like, she made such a huge big deal out of it, as if her whole entire world was about to end. But to me, it's like, I could just make another one super quick, and she'll be on her merry way. No biggie, you know? Like, it's like I saw one side of the coin, she saw the other side of the coin, and now you can clearly compare and contrast, you know? Thus, I go by that philosophy of everything is nothing, and nothing is everything. There are certain things that some people hold very dearly to them that mean everything to them. But then, for other people, that very thing that they hold dearly, they couldn't give less of a shit about, you know? I feel like that really is the true proper silver lining, to where I now begin to truly understand now why sometimes other people's opinions genuinely don't matter. But when I think about it like that, from that type of perspective, it's like, you know, sometimes a person could be right about something, but sometimes they could also be wrong. I mean, to an extent, nobody's really like completely right, but then also no one's ever really completely wrong. The way that we're conditioned, the rules that we have in this whole society of ours, that really determines what's right or wrong, and also whether we choose to listen to it or not. It's kind of like that in a way. Us as human beings have our own individual choice to really choose what is really significant to us and what is very, very insignificant to us, you know? And I guess here's another example. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, a couple of friends of mine and I also went to Pride Fest. It was in the city. It was a nice parade, a bunch of colors, people of different sexualities, people of different gender identities. And I thought it was super cool. It was a very nice and chill atmosphere. Everyone was kind and very respectful to one another. And I really like that stuff, you know? It was a nice atmosphere where everyone was just trying to just be themselves, and nobody was really judging anybody, you know, for what they were wearing or for who they like or how they choose to see themselves as a human being, you know? There were still some people close to them holding up signs with God being like, this is sinful, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, go back to your former lovers, go back to your former lovers, be straight, convert back to this, convert back to that. But it's like, that really is just their opinion, you know? That's how they choose to see things. What they choose to see as wrong, that's what they find very important to them. But to everyone else, no one really seemed to care. What they were doing felt right. What they were doing felt important to them, and it allowed them to embrace who they were and basically be able to accept themselves for how they are, despite society telling them otherwise, you know? And it allows them to embrace themselves and to figure out who they are and to really just channel that, to live a nice life of happiness and joy. And I think that's pretty fucking cool, you know? I may not feel what they feel, but I still think it's pretty rad. The things that we choose to tell ourselves, the things that we choose, you know, to see, like in our lives, that really does condition how we see the world, how we see ourselves, and also how we see others, you know? And I feel like we could either choose to use that for good, for everything else I was mentioning before, and ultra and plus, or we could choose to remain stagnant and forever ruin our lives. And I guess the choice is kind of up to us. And I think that's about it. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on around me. Not the smartest place to film, but I still did it anyways. And I think that's about it. I feel like if I keep rambling, I'm probably never gonna get this shit done, but I think you guys get the point. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully maybe this could somewhat resonate with you. And if not, that's fine as well, you know? I'm just living life, you're living life, we're all living life. And that's it. Have a good one.